I'm sorry for, well, not exactly sorry. I am starting late. And I don't want to say I'm sorry. I mean, it's very Canadian of me to say that I'm sorry. But in one sense, there was actually a reason I am happy about that I'm late. It is a really bad streamer reason, and I will try not to do this very often. Obviously, it's been sort of a usual thing that Fridays start a little bit later. But I must confess that I have been really enjoying a book. It's specifically about Renaissance technologies and its founder, Jim Simmons. So, and the fact of the matter is, I've been talking a little bit about how for a while, this is actually kind of older news. The number is back up, but I think it was actually the first monthly loss of followers ever happened. I think in June or May, and it's just a little dip. It's not the sort of thing where I'm like, okay, well, the stream's going away, or anything like that. But I do think that coincides with the fact that even on my regular streaming days, I've sort of been pushing the start time a little bit. Some of this is related to the pandemic and a sort of a shift in terms of my own working circumstances. Some of this is just a certain degree of I guess for lack of a better term, tiredness, a number of other projects that I've been doing. It's really neat. I don't know if I've actually said it as openly as this. This is actually a year where I now have 2 game credits, which is not something I would have expected to be the case. But that's a really great opportunity. That's something that was really nice, but it does tend to mean that the time has got to come from somewhere else, and sometimes that means sleep, and unfortunately it's really easy for that sort of thing to creep up on you, and you don't realize how much effort you're putting into things until sort of you start lagging. So sometimes I've had late starts because I'll lie back, maybe trying to start reading something, maybe just actually going in bed and putting a blanket over myself for a second. And next thing I wake up and, it's dark out. So my commitment to you is I am going to really make a serious effort to getting a bit more consistent with the start times. I haven't exactly put it in those terms, but I think one of the drawbacks, and I think one of the reasons why that got a little out of hand, is that it is very easy for that sort of thing to become self-reinforcing. So if you see the slow tick down in terms of follow counts over time, and again, some of that's because people who join because of the Cultist Simulator Steam stream found that maybe the stream wasn't quite what they were looking for. Some people may be leaving the Twitter platform altogether. Some people just not really digging my stuff anymore, which is always a shame, but that's going to happen, and you hope that you get enough people to kind of come back to replace those numbers. And I mean, there's always the fact that maybe I'm not as good of a caster as I was before, or maybe, I'm different than I was before. That's a really hard one to keep track of. But the biggest thing is that when you start seeing sort of a dip in a metric, that can kind of become self-reinforcing to a certain extent, because if you start feeling like the effort isn't worth it, or, it's like, people won't show up, so I won't do it. Well, if you don't have a consistent start time, then it's, people aren't necessarily going to make the time for you either. And so what was originally a small little slip suddenly becomes a sort of a situation where people are more regularly, missing the cast. And of course, the more variable my start time, the less likely people are going to be able to check it out. So with that in mind, again, it's not, there's no like major alarm bells or flags. I was actually incredibly heartened by the response to the birthday stream on Wednesday. That was actually really special, and I wanted to thank you for that, those of you who are kicking around. But as it was today, one really big thing is that I have also tried to give myself, I don't know, the lesson or the benefit or the policy, however I want to describe it. One thing I really am trying to start doing is that if I fall behind in one thing, I'm trying not to make that turn into sort of a cascading failure. So I have a number of data projects that I'm working on. I have a number of, I have my paying job to work on. I've got a bunch of different irons in the fire. And I noticed that it's really easy to miss things like if you want to read more and you're in a particularly busy time and you fall behind on something that maybe isn't essential. So like if you don't have groceries and you're not going to eat in the evening, you probably need to make the time for groceries. But beyond essentials like that, something like reading on its own can seem like it is a very... it can seem like that is a very easy one to sort of bump off in favor of the quote-unquote more important work. And yet I don't think anyone, if asked in straight terms, do you think reading is not important? I don't think anybody would ever actually say that. I think we all recognize that there is a tremendous benefit to that. And even in the case of stuff that people might consider to be puff, right? Like creativity is important, imagination is important, empathy is important. And there's actually for those of you who like maybe the more nonfiction section, which I tend to find, there's a wonderful quote by James Mattis, the former Secretary of Defense, who I think it was a journalist or hey, Uncle Cranky, great to see you. Uncle Gray, I'm rather sorry. It looks like you didn't get one of the gift subs. I'm sorry for that. I'm not quite in a point where I can give those out, but I feel like, especially someone like you who stops by so often, I think you got lost in the shuffle on. Well, I know for some of them they were randomly assigned, but I owe you one, and please hold me to that. Because I know you've recently gone through a big disruption in your own circumstances. And I think more importantly, you should get the perks. I don't know. It'd be a nice thing to do. So hold me to that. But yeah, I don't remember the exact quote, and I think it would be better to let Mattis speak for himself rather than for me to try and do it by memory. But I think the fact of the matter is that you'll never experience the cost of failing to read in the moment when you're making that decision. You're going to face that cost at the time that you would have benefited from that knowledge or that insight. And, by then it's too late, and you probably won't recognize that early decision that you made. And so in all of this is really just to say that I really got into that book. I decided to give myself an extra chapter, which wound up taking a little bit longer than I had planned. So I knew I was going to be a bit late with the cast, but I really got into the book, and casting is important to me, but I do think too there is something to be said for maintaining the thing that constitutes me. Obviously, if I hit the start broadcasting button and I don't have anything to say, what good is that to anybody? So it's not a good excuse. It's one that is entirely focused on me, and I think I can appreciate the majority of viewers saying this is not my problem, right? If you can't find time for reading, I want to be entertained, and if you're not going to entertain me, I'm gonna find a place that can. But I wanted to. Partly I just wanted to talk about sort of recognizing where I could improve a little bit on getting started. But also sort of, I guess, indirectly. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I built myself a tower of Raspberry Pis. I got 4 sitting here right now. I did not realize that there was a protected film on these things, and that I should actually have clear plates. I'm going to stop playing with this. But I don't know. Part of it is I I don't have a lot of time for the streamers that become life coaches. Actually, I don't have a lot of time for life coaches, if I'm completely honest. But I wanted to take that little anecdote and share with you, for those of you who might feel like you're at a point where you don't have time to read, or you don't have time to do those things that you want. I ultimately can't tell you how to spend your time, and I certainly am not a model of how to spend one's time. But I do think that there can sometimes be some value in accepting that, the cost of the thing. So if something goes wrong and it either takes longer than expected, or something comes up and it interrupts, I'm trying to get myself out of the habit of sort of taxing my other activities. If something takes longer, it's like, well, then I'll just set that aside and I'll get that done at the time. Unless it's super important. Obviously, you can't apply this to everything. But one very nice side effect of it is that I've actually gotten a lot more reading done this year. Obviously, there are other reasons why that's happened. But it's not just been more reading in general. It's not a page count. It's very enriching reading that's been happening, and I hope whether it's reading for you or it's writing. I'm sorry, I'm so focused on literature, but maybe you wanted to draw something, maybe you wanted to make a game or learn programming, or maybe you wanted to take up sports again or learn to play an instrument. I hope that you're able to sort of find the time or make the time for yourself. One other thing I wanted to share really quickly was Victoria Tran of Kit Fox Games fame was kind enough to share something that I emailed her. So as part of another project I was working on, I took the something about 3,000 tweets from the Kit Fox Games Twitter, as one does. And I had this corpus. I only get so many calls on the Twitter API, so I hung on to that data set in memory just to make sure that I had what I needed. And I thought, as kind of one final little project to do, I do a quick text analysis of the Kit Fox Games Twitter. And it wasn't a very rigorous one, so I only used I used a few stop words. I didn't stem anything. So there's a few things about that analysis which would, if I were to be making like a grand statement with it, I would, I would definitely be very skeptical of the analysis that I did. But it was disarmingly wholesome. The most used word after I got past things like, punctuation or HTTPS was thanks. And then, Boyfriend Dungeon, which is not really surprising. That's the game that they're kind of pushing at the moment. They have some others coming out too. Lucifer Within Us, Mondo Museum. They'll be publishing the Steam version of Dwarf Fortress. Yeah, it was all like positivity and gratitude in terms of the most used words. So I got a nice little email back from Victoria asking if she could share that. I mean, I can't really say no to that, right? It's their tweets. But I just kind of gave her the caveat about how it was, how it was a really rough sort of fun project to do. That was my day. And again, giving everybody a chance to kind of file in. And we're ready for more Outer Wilds. Now, there's a new approach that I'm going to take on this. It's kind of funny. We started off so well last stream in terms of being able to access the get past the problem that we were having about the quantum moon. And even then, it wasn't so much that I started with a solution. It was I started with a test of one of my assumptions that really wasn't a good one. white hole. Right. Okay, I was like, what's that yellow thing there? I was thinking it was like the sun station. So here's where I'm at with some of this. So we spent a lot of time in the vessel. So I found a derelict Nomai vessel deep within dark bramble. I activated a 3-sided pillar on the vessel's bridge that appears to be some sort of input device. The Nomai tried to call for help, but the vessel's outgoing message system broke during the crash. The vessel can still hear incoming messages from other Nomai vessels. The remaining Nomai clans are regrouping in response to the impending death of the universe. I found a recording of the original signal the Nomai encountered from the Eye of the Universe. The Nomai were worried that the signal might disappear, so they warped before they could tell another clan where they were going. And there's more to explore here. Now, the biggest thing about this area was that it presented me with what seemed to be puzzles where I didn't have enough information to move forward. And the best that I can tell is that there are multiple locked doors that at some point I should be able to get through, but I don't have a direct path for sorting that out. And more importantly, I have not actually looked at everything that I can on the Ash Twin project. I sort of had a choice between saying, well, I can take a look at the vessel or I can take a look at the Ash Twin project. And I don't even think I really considered it that deeply. I think really I just sort of said to myself, well, we're just going to go to the vessel today. And the biggest thing that I thought about was that we've got the Ash Twin project. So actually, let's just take a quick second here. The central chamber inside the Ash Twin was physically sealed off by an immensely thick protective shell. So I don't think it was last stream, but I think the stream before I had an idea about how to get around that. The Nomai plan to construct technology capable of producing a 22-minute negative time interval on Ash Twin. Every memory recorded by a Nomai statue is transmitted to a corresponding storage unit within Ash Twin. An advanced warp core was approved for installation in the central chamber of Ash Twin. So the only real connection I can make between that and the warp core, of course, is the vessel. And I don't know if it's... I actually am a little unsure as to whether or not there was a new warp core constructed with, the Black Hole Forge. Because I know the Black Hole Forge was going into the Ash Twin Towers. I will confess I'm a little uncertain as to whether or not they ultimately used the core from the vessel. I'm kind of sure they do. At the very least, they took the design of the warp core. But we've used a lot of the Ash Twin Towers here. But the part that I didn't really address last stream, and the fact that might have made the Ash Twin project a little more attractive than the vessel, other than the fact I hadn't really looked at Dark Bramble and it was an obvious location, was the fact that with the Ash Twin Towers, there is one that's clearly related to the Ash Twins, which we never wound up using, but it would seem to me logically, if there's no external entrance to the Ash Twin project, then it's one that should be accessible through those towers. More importantly, this is nice because this is this is a hypothesis that is fairly easy for me to test. I need to stand on the tower. If the tower works, I'm good. If the tower doesn't work, then I need to reconsider exactly what I was looking for. The other thing too, now it's told me that I've got everything I need in the high energy lab. There was an experiment that I could run, and it's a little less clear to me as to whether or not we need something from the Ash Twin project to be able to do the 22-minute adjustment. Or whether or not there's some other detail. The game's telling me there's nothing else for me to do in the high energy lab, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't more information that I can take from it. Because to be honest with you, the experiment that I ran didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I couldn't really establish that we had produced the effect that we were testing. Finally, we've got the Ash Tower designs. This is more or less just to verify what I kind of know already. Designs for each of the towers in the Ash Twin's equator. Each tower warps to a different planet, although many Nomai were quick to note that the sun is not actually a planet. Each tower is designed to visually reflect its warp destination. The towers allowed Nomai to quickly travel between Ash Twin and all other locations crucial to the Ash Twin project. So there could be something to the idea of teleporting to Dark Bramble. It may be that the vessel has a teleportation location. I'm a little skeptical of that idea, but it's not impossible. We definitely got what we needed from what is it, Broken Hollow? I think there was something in Giant Steep. We definitely made it to the Sun Station. But most of all, I'm interested in the Hourglass Twins. So that's what we're going to start with tonight. It's not at all clear that how long, or I mean, if it's a quick test and it's it's negative, then I suppose I need to figure out what I'm doing. If it turns out that this is not a good approach. Then I really need to think about what my next step is, because at that point it really means that the vessel is my best option, and I'm sort of out of ideas on that for the time being. But it seems to me, I mean, we're going to waste a little time here. There isn't anything for me to really do in the on the ash planet until... Well, one thing I can do is avoid flying into the sun. That would be a good idea. But yeah, at this point, it's not a bad idea for me to just enjoy a leisurely stroll or small flight. I know I have the meditation option for closing the loop. I believe if I'm by a fire, I have like a waiting option, but I will admit I'm not entirely sure how long the wait is. Well, you know what? We're at the start of the stream. We can experiment. It seems to me that if we're going to be teleporting into the... Oops. It seems to me that if we're going to be teleporting into the center at the Ash Twin project, I have no idea why it's jerking me around like this. Yeah, it seems to me that if we're... because I'm basically on the edge of a cliff. If we're teleporting to the center... Well, either the center of the planet or otherwise something that is not accessible from the outside, we have a lot less to fear about overstaying our welcome. The only time we need to really fear overstaying the welcome is if the sun goes up. But as you can see, not much in the way of towers available yet. We can do the all-important task of roasting a marshmallow. By the way, how are you doing, Uncle Cranky? There's a few more people here than when you normally start in, so for those of you unfamiliar with him, I am going to take a quick minute for myself. I'm not going to tab out of the game just because we're on the first run. But for those of you looking for a streamer who goes a bit later than I do... Oh, do I? Okay, cool. Oh, so it's by seconds. Okay, well, let's try a minute. That's the start of those towers. Yeah, we definitely got the tops of those towers showing now. I really should kind of keep my own timer at the side. But yeah, so for those of you who, particularly for if the time zones don't quite work for me, Uncle Cranky is, despite the name, a very friendly streamer. How long have you been doing this, Uncle Crank? I know you're a mod for Outworld, but I don't know if the mod came first and the stream came second, or if you were just a streamer who got in touch with Outworld and sort of moved moved into the supply side. It doesn't quite make sense, but one way or the other, he's probably best defined as a variety caster. One of the challenges with variety casting is, one, it's hard to differentiate oneself. It's not the most descriptive name, and it doesn't necessarily give you a lot in terms of saying why you should watch someone. I am a variety caster, although certainly probably the thing people would watch me for is almost certainly the strategy stuff, which doesn't mean that it's ever going to be strategy, exclusive strategy, but I sort of know that that's the thing that people probably know me best for. But Cranky, I mean, my caveats about how meaningful saying you're a variety caster is. One thing I will say for Uncle Cranky is that he does it quite well. He's done Hades, he's done a lot of retro, and currently he's doing Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now, I apparently have missed the boat on Pathfinder. I didn't really know of its existence until it was already an established thing. And by the time I was aware of it, ooh, this might get a little ugly. I'm just trying not to get picked up to the other planet. By the time I was aware of it, everybody was sort of talking about it as if this was a known thing. Oh, my my ship certainly isn't. Yeah, that's gonna be a little complicated. All right, I'm gonna catch up on some of the reading here. I probably need to move on. I can't remember why the silly bastard first dropped in on Audi on August 17th, started streaming January 18th. Okay, yeah, Uncle Cranky definitely. This is one of the things that's really nice about him, is that he's a nice guy. He's definitely looking to grow his channel, which I think is a good reason to follow him and see if it's something that's your cup of tea. But the other thing that's nice about him is that he's got definitely very diverse tastes, and I think he wears it well. Where sometimes when I do things that are off the beaten track, I tend to think sometimes it just annoys people. Anyways, friends visiting from the Hanging City, we are planning the Ash Twin project at the High Energy Lab on Ember Twin's equator. I became lost on Ember Twin. My gratitude that Rami found me, but the High Energy Lab is the building with the large solar panels. I'm surprised I didn't see it. I imagine our otherwise immensely clever Kanoi would lose his own head if it weren't anatomically impossible. Okay. Just can't pick up the... I'll admit, I've actually forgotten a little bit. Oh, right. This has got to line up. So first thing I'm going to do is just wait for the planet to show up. It's possible I'm wrong about this, at which point I'm going to need to reevaluate. So if the ship's... Okay, ship's beneath me, so we're coming around. Pathfinder came out in 2007, which makes sense since it was made in response to the ill reception of D&D 4th edition. And that's about when that edition dropped. I see. So is it just like D&D, but where we don't have the license? Is that the idea? Sorry, Dungeons in D&D? Starting to doubt myself a little bit. Oh no, it's moving. I think I'd originally, I think I'd actually originally attempted this at some point, and I'd written it off as it's not properly aligned. But after the fact, I had said, "Hang on a second, this thing might be for the Ash Twin project." So let's see whether or not our hunch was right. Oh, here we go. Interesting. Where am I? Turn warp status charge. Step onto the warp receiver platform to activate the return warp. Okay. Really interesting. Okay, so this is the high energy lab. I feel like we might have actually tried this already then. Oh, now I've gone and done it. Gotta remember where. There we go. Okay, so that wasn't necessarily helpful. That's not the only destination. It's under the open game license, so it's just D&D 3.5 edition without the trademark stuff and a lot of really abusive mechanical stuff cleared out. Gotcha. I will admit, actually, I've never been a huge role-playing game, I don't know, aficionado. I need to find a source of oxygen. I think I'll risk it. And again, it's just the, you know, the very practical matter of not necessarily having people to play with all the time. But I feel so like, but again, I'm not completely, I'm not completely, you know, unfamiliar. I played a couple of White Wolf games. I played Shadowrun, and it seems like there's kind of been a shift in terms of role. Like the idea that there are sort of these independent groups. Oh no. Interesting. Okay. So I need to find a way. Okay, so priority number 1, I gotta get to the ship. Priority number 2, I gotta find out how I can stay on that platform with that thing pounding down on me. But yeah, like I mean, I suppose to a certain extent, you know, it's always been a hobby driven by sort of these scrappy, you know, small firms with a good idea. You know, obviously Wizards of the Coast is a big deal, but you know, once upon a time, FASA, you know, was not. You know, FASA was not the sort of thing that could be bought by Microsoft and just generally, you know, the company that's, you know, producing virtual reality death matches and whatnot. So I guess to a certain extent, that's really just tabletop gaming coming back to its roots. And yet, what's so interesting to me is that I definitely like it, just in terms of, you know, being involved in local game dev groups in the cities I've lived in. There are people who seem to be, you know, making a viable living with these sort of independent supplements or products for for their for these games like Pathfinder and whatnot. It's been really interesting. I mean, again, this is probably something that's been going on for a long time, or at the very least is just a return to its roots. Okay, so there's nothing I can do to avoid the storm. It looks like my energy isn't what it needs to be, or my rockets aren't what they need to be. I'm assuming we're not properly lined up now, so that's also a problem. Yeah, that's not going to pull me away, so... what do I do about this spot? And sorry, I know I was kind of meandering about Pathfinder and the such, but game constantly. So Roll20 is a website that exists and is amazing. Your Saturday night Pathfinder game has yourself, one player here in Auckland, one player in Sydney, one in Brisbane, and the fourth player in Lviv, Ukraine. So I'm assuming they probably have a job with very different hours from the rest of you. Pathfinder to you is a lot like Path of Exile. New Thing appears, people do not like New Thing, rather than whine and moan on the internet about it. They just said, screw it, we'll make our own, aligning to the vision that we had for New Thing. I wish I could do that with video games. I'm not good enough to be able to make something good. This is a cactus. Well, I can do a trial run for... okay, so that's going to sort of block me. I'm not entirely convinced that this is going to save me from the... from Sand Doom. Actually, you know what I might be able to do? That's going to screw me. I hope I'm lining this... oh, wait a minute. I'm not thinking straight. This is a roof. Aha! Ooh, this is definitely the Ash Twin project. And this looks very confusing and very awesome. Alright, I don't have a lot of time left. 17 minutes, 55 seconds ago, received data from previous cycles. Masks receiving data from Probe Tracking Module, Giant Steep Memory Statue, Timber Hearth Memory Statue. 5 minutes until end of cycle transmission. Oh man, so some of the stuff, I feel like some of the stuff that we've been talking about is true. I think some of the stuff I was talking about is just pure nonsense. This is exciting. There's so much to read, though. Oh god, this is such a great environment. Yarrow, today we finished the excavation of Ash Twin. Here, in this space that we carved, we'll craft our most ambitious project yet, the Ash Twin Project, powerful enough to send information back in time. Sorry, I'm ignoring chat. We had a breakthrough, so... we've also finished relocating all subterranean plants we met while digging. We'll need to keep our eyes on how significantly we've altered the environment here. Right. After Yarrow, Pi, how far we've come since our experiment at the High Energy Lab. I still can hardly believe Rami's hypothesis was true. I use the word hypothesis as much as the Nomai in this. Poke just sent back the warp core for the final tower to get us from the black hole forge. Now Ash Twin can be connected with Giant Steep, where Cassava is working with Avens to craft the orbital probe cannon, and where Phlox is sculpting the memory statues. Hypothesis. It was not by accident the core of our warp tower was the last to be forged. Hypothesis. The cores should have been forged faster if Kasava had interrupted my work less frequently to ask for updates. Yarrow. The important point is that we are all connected through Ash Twin now, and also that I'm no longer needed for mediating your disagreements. Love the music for here, right, by the way. I think both of you mean the Stellaris ring planets. Our friends on Giants Deep tested the orbital probe cannon today. Malo tells me the cannon is doing well, and that Avens advocates for more launch power. If anyone can coax the maximum power from a device, Avens can. But then, if anyone can goad a device into exploding, that too is likely Avens. Perhaps I should check in with the orbital probe cannon crew in the interest of safety. Would it help to remind Avens that Malo, his love, would be one of the Nomai aboard the cannon, or is Malo part of the problem? Phlox and Daz finished the memory statues today, and they are truly remarkable. When the Ash Twin project succeeds, or in the event it fails, the memory statues will activate, allowing us to gather more data before we shut down the project. These people... I feel a deep connection with the Nomai. Pi and Idea have worked hard on the Sun Station, and it at last is complete. If everything goes as planned, this structure will prompt the Sun's explosion, which will in turn supply the power the Ash Twin project requires. Wow, okay. So we weren't exactly right on that one. We said that there was, whatever choice for making power they needed. Wait a minute. Huh. Okay, I'm going to have to think that through a little bit. So it says like they did something that caused the sun to explode in order to get the power. This seems to be implying that it is the explosion of the sun that is generating the power, which obviously is not what I said, so I can't take a victory lap for something that just kind of fits a torturing of the hypothesis. I'm impressed by their mental fortitude. This was the project's most difficult task in more ways than one. We're nearly ready to activate the Ash Twin project. Here is what will happen. First, the Sun Station will receive the order to fire at the Sun, prompting it to explode. Using the energy from the resulting supernova, the Ash Twin project will send the order for the orbital probe cannon to fire back in time by 22 minutes. This is why we see it firing at the start. Exactly 22 minutes after these orders are received, the Sun Station will again trigger the supernova to send the probe data from this cannon launch back in time. In total, each cycle created by the Ash Twin project will last precisely 22 minutes. We can end the cycle at will. These words are difficult to write. The Sun Station did not work. Suppose we redesign the Sun Station to generate power of that magnitude. A supernova is still our only viable option. This is easier expressed than accomplished. God, I love the way that they just slightly alter, sort of cliche turns of phrase. You can wait for the sun to explode on its natural timeline if you prefer, Idea, but you'll need to find some way to halt our aging process. Okay, so suppose we were designed a Sun Station. I believe we can still find a way to create a supernova, my friend. Don't lose hope. Okay. However, this is the closest we have ever been. The Ash Twin project is theoretically sound. We were only unable to power it. Perhaps there is another way. We are halting our research into creating a supernova for this moment. A comet has newly arrived in the solar system, and we are anxious to explore it. It's been a very long time since we last explored somewhere new, so we're excited to welcome this comet. Imagine what knowledge might be gained there. Oh god, there's so much writing. Okay. Timber Hearth. My gratitude for the latest shipment, Onio. This ore should be the last we'll need for the Ash Twin project. Once we finish the shell that seals off the central chamber, we'll check to ensure that there are no longer any physical entrances. Rami and I will be checking the interior and then the exterior for cracks, our final safety check. This is exciting news. I can offer an extra set of eyes for this final check, specifically mine. If my work here is complete, I'd be delighted to help. We'd be grateful if you would. The more eyes, the better, as the smallest flaw or opening could in the shell that protects the Ash Twin Project could lead to disaster. I've installed the masks inside the Ash Twin Project flocks. They look beautiful, although I do feel as though I'm being observed. It's comforting to know the statues will not pair until the project succeeds, otherwise I imagine the experience would be hard to endure. Ideally, they'll only need to activate once the project succeeds as a safety measure. However, the statues will also activate in the event of equipment failure. They will? Why is that? If anything goes wrong with the Ash Twin Project, statues and their masks will make it aware of the situation and enable us to fix it. Otherwise, it would be possible for us to remain permanently unaware of the problem. I hadn't thought of that. What a profoundly horrific fate that would be. So, of course, now we got to figure out what went wrong. I have good news, Yarrow. The advanced warp core is ready to be installed in the central chamber of Ash Twin. I'm intrigued, love. Everyone here working on the Ash Twin project is excited to see it. Pi is beside herself with joy. Poke says no, it isn't. Is everything well at the forge? The core's durability could still be improved. I need more time. Ignore her, Yarrow. The core is finished, and if my sister tells you otherwise, then she will be finished as well. Clary, don't worry, love. Poke is only nervous. The core is extraordinary, and her design work is beautifully clever. I think we're getting an idea. You know, the placement actually really works for me there. I don't know if that's supposed to be specifically how it's handled, but I feel like that gave a very decent sort of accounting of events in a artificial gravity control. What about the rest? I want to see what the unlabeled thing does. Too close to target. You're about to access the core while the Ash Twin Project is active. Removing the core will disable the Ash Twin Project. Oh, I don't want to. Oh God. We're so close to the sun exploding. I feel like we need to keep the Ash Twin Project going. Oh God! What am I doing? Yeah, right out this second. God, I am so nervous about what happens if I fail to, like, if I cancel the Ash Twin Project and more than 22 minutes go by, whether I just doom us all. Because the thing is, it's all well and good for me to, you know, I'm assuming this thing opens up, but, like, to what end? Well, you know what, rather than wasting the time, I should at least be seeing what's going on in these locations. It probably would be easier with the artificial gravity, but let's work with what we've got. Oof. Well, that didn't work. Whoa! What's going on here? Well, I know where we're going next. All right. The Ash Twin Project. A hollowed out chamber inside Ash Twin. The energy cables from the planet, from the surface, are plugged into a protective casing at the center of the planet. There are 8 monoliths with Nomai masks attached. 3 of the masks are actively receiving data from the probe tracking module, Giant's Deep and Timberhearth, respectively. The Ash Twin Project was designed to use the energy from a supernova triggered by the Sun Station to send probe data from the orbital probe cannon 22 minutes into the past. The Sun Station did not work. Although the Ash Twin Project was theoretically sound, the Nomai were unable to power it. There is an advanced warp core inside the protective casing at the center of the planet. Removing the core will disable the Ash Twin Project. I know I have some time before before the area, like before I'm able to warp. So I think in this case here I'm going to take a minute and go back to Giant's Deep to see if I can find out some details. This is actually going to be a bit inconvenient. It may take me longer than I need, but it would not hurt for me to just remember a couple details. God, I keep forgetting how interesting so many of these environments are. It's the ones going counterclockwise. Wait, what am I doing? Okay, well we know that one's not right. I swear I'm missing something really obvious, but... Right. I think it's debatable as to whether or not I should have brought my ship along. But I'll work with what I got here. Oh crap. May I be embraced by the great Mother Jelly. Yay! Oh, oh, oh. Get up there. All right, here we go. Now, of course, getting back up is going to be another question, but we'll worry about that a little bit later. All right, let's, oh God. Just a few details I wanted to get here. It's one thing to dive into pulsating void orifice, but another entirely to extract yourself. Okay, I'm actually just going to take a quick minute here and grab my notebook. Gabe's been pretty good so far in not requiring me to take notes, but I'd rather not spend the time going over stuff that receiving data from probe 9318104, visualizing current trajectory of probe 9318140. Of course, we know that one's not gonna hit. We've already found the eye of the universe. I think these were all the attempts. Which one is our timeline, chat? Oh, well, there it is. Oh no, that's the eye of the universe. All right. Retrieving previous launch data from Ash Twin. Total number of probes launched 9,318,140. Deep space anomaly matching all known criteria for the eye of the universe found by probe 9,318,054. So. That strikes me as an important detail. Oh, hang on. Retrieving stored coordinates from Ash Twin. Displaying coordinates for the eye of the universe. So, here's an idea for you. That console that we found for the vessel is the steering. And that's the pattern that we need. I forgot about this. Not a great artist, but I'll bet you that those are coordinates for the ship. Now I suspect what I'm probably going to have to do is pull out the core in the Ash Twin project. Because if they took the core out of the ship in order to be able to power it, I'm not going to be able to travel there. But, what if I'm wrong? I've just powered down the Ash Twin project and we don't know what the consequences are. So what I'm going to do... My God. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go... I'm going to go visit that vessel, and I'm going to see whether or not those coordinates mean anything. So I guess the question is, do I still want to try going to the Ash Twin project? And I think I have something more interesting to try right now. God, that's actually really exciting. I've felt excited by discoveries for a while, but I feel like a whole bunch of stuff just really clicked into place right now. It's one of the things that's really exciting about this game is it's so easy to get excited by ideas and trying out new stuff. Or it would if I... Well, there's my ticket out of there, but you know what? I'm not taking it. Here's why. So I have not made use of those tablets for a while. But if I went into this area and I said, okay, there was some information that I got that was really important, and I ignored it, then why am I not checking everything in this area? The answer to that, by the way, is because it's a waste of time and you only have 22 minutes. But let's run with it. So, Ash Twin Projection Stone. All right, so we know this place. Interesting enough, we don't see the warp core. I'm assuming we can't walk into the... yeah. Oh, I know why. It's like, what's going on here? Oh, is that it? All right, so this was probably a little more gratuitous than it, more of a gratuitous trip than it needed to be. You know, I'm not sure I learned anything new out of that, but we couldn't have known, right? So I'll feel a little bit better about the waste of time. Oh, can I make you? Yeah, I mean, we got something helpful. Oh God, I hope this works. You know, we got something useful before. And it seems to me, you know, that was a risk worth taking to learn more about our situation. Okay, so I'll just let this thing slide off of me naturally. I don't want to be too aggressive in moving down just because there is a big ball of electricity at the bottom waiting to hurt me. Okay, we're clear. Let's get to the ship. By the way, Cranky, I said nice things about you. I said hi to you. Did I ask how you're doing? And that same can be said for everyone in chat, really. But I feel particularly bad in Cranky's case because he's always such a gentleman when I visit. And I feel like a little bit of a heel for not asking. Thought for a second that was the quantum moon. I'm like, wow, they're really trying. You're not bald, you've got a magnificent beard. Oh, you mean on the top. Yes. Everyone feel free to make fun of Uncle Cranky. He's a second-class citizen. Look at him. He doesn't even have a subscription badge beside him. By the way, for any of you who do have a sub badge beside you, there might be a little surprise waiting for you. No bully jogging. No. Wouldn't dream of it. The funny thing is, Cranky is one of the few people who... So, you know, people who see me in chat tend to be very surprised by how I am on cast. People on cast are often surprised by how I behave in certain chats. A lot of chats, really. Cranky has probably seen both and definitely gets it better than most. It's obviously my responsibility to make sure that I'm, you know, palatable enough to not merit a ban or anything like that. But it's one of the reasons I enjoy talking with Uncle Cranky, because he... Oh, looks like I've got some repairs to do. I'll tell you... oh, wow. We've got quite a few repairs to do, actually. One of the things that's kind of nice with him is, you know, we can have a serious discussion in very sarcastic or otherwise, you know, silly terms. And I like that. He's definitely able to sort of switch gears quite readily. Makes him fun to hang out with. Or maybe I've completely misread him and I'm actually the biggest bully to him in the world, and I just haven't realized it, and we're just locked in this horrible cycle of hurting each other. And it's funny, because we're allowed to disagree on things too. For instance, I like freedom. He hates freedom. Oh, I said I was going to go to Dark Bramble. That is a very, very deserved, exasperated emote, Uncle Cranky. Are those all Outworlds, or is this a series of Mortal Kombat nerds? Obviously, Outworld's the only one I know. You know, it'd be really great if I actually had a destination. I can't. It was just last week, but I've actually kind of forgotten how to get there. So we'll follow to Escape Pod 3, and it should give me the rest of it. Oh yeah, I wouldn't expect Outworld to have that laughing emote. Obviously, Outworld just never laughs. Please don't tell him I said that. Alright, so now we're in the territory where the anglers might get me. Haven't heard the beastie yet, though. I feel like I need to go to the red light. But again, I'm sort of at a point here where, because I don't directly remember. Oh, you know what? I remember how I. Oh, now I've gone and done it. I actually think I'm gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. I could have set my marker for. I could have set my marker for the. Set my marker for the vessel. Well, actually, you know what? I still might be able to do that. This is definitely wasted time, but... Alright, so if memory serves, there's going to be a whole batch of anglerfish coming to murder me. So just slam into that. Gently. Gently. I'm going to give it a little more distance. I mean, we can still cross the distance at a reasonable enough pace. All right. Let's book it. Oh, that made somebody angry. Ah! Okay, so my suspicion is that this is not yet complete. But I would... Oh, come on. Is this the Doom music already? I think it is. No! 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 I'm not ready for you yet! Alright. Let's make this count. Oh god, this is hard. No! 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 Good enough. Actually, let me take a minute to... Yeah. Oh, this is going to be a tricky one. Ah, that wasn't so bad. Oh, that's a very inconclusive result. What? That's so weird.
It's so obnoxious. It's great.
All right, guys. Well, that was The Outer Wilds. Thank you, everybody, for watching. No, I'm going to grab a quick glass of water, and then we'll go back. I'm kind of glad that they let me load the previous save. That's fascinating. Like, I would have thought that if I pulled out the... I would have thought if I pulled out the core, that could have potentially caused that. I was not expecting that to... I was not expecting putting the coordinates into the ship to do something. Anyways, I'll be back in a sec. Also, hi, Maniacal Dr. Watts. I'm glad I could show you something new. That's so funny. All right, well, it seems to me that we really don't have anything else in any of the other places except for the... except for the Ash Twin Project. I gotta just move off course a little bit so that I can hopefully not fly into the sun. Actually, I guess we know that we have a couple minutes to wait. So maybe we'll try 2 minutes here. Oof. You can do it, my friend. I believe in you. Whatever, close enough. It's important to have priorities. This is a imagining of our space-time. All right, well, you know what? That one's on me. That's probably too early, but... So I guess next time we might try... Like, I'm probably inclined towards 3 minutes because I'm a bit conservative on this sort of stuff. But I could probably get by with like a 4-minute wait. That's probably gonna scoop up the... I am going to be really curious. So we now know that the game will allow you to blow up everything. So I wonder if that's the same ending that you get if you, if you pull out the core but fail to travel to the location. I don't know. It's pretty clear that, like, it seems to me we really only have one course of action at this point, which is to, I like, it might be that some of the text that I read a really long time ago that would tell me why what I did was so destructive. But it would seem to me that based on the information that I've got right now, we have a location. We definitely have an outcome. Having put that location into the ship, that definitely altered outcomes. So it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that we, we're onto something with that. So at this point, it seems to be. It seems to be that this is our most logical path to follow at the moment. Of course, the important thing, what we just learned about that ending, is that not all experimentation is good. Okay. So 7:59, probe tracking module, 14 minutes till end of cycle. Whoa! No. Get that thing open. I feel sufficiently warned. Brittle Hollow, Timber Hearth. Yep. Slightly curious. Right, I kind of remember that. And looks like I can just go right into the middle. Maybe not. Okay, I am going to have to disable the gravity. That's wasted time, but no, let's not... I'm not going to get too... I'm not going to fuss too much about it. It is interesting to see how small the core is, though. Okay, calm down. Now this is an interesting question. I may not be able to get on my ship with this thing. Oh, I thought it said destroy warp core. I'm like, whoa! Okay, well the music's definitely taken a turn for... Oh god! This music. It's exciting, though. This is definitely a signal that I'm doing something dramatic. Oh, before I go too much further, what? Oh, I probably crashed into the... Yeah. Crashed into the planet while I was setting up the... while I was setting up the... while I was setting up the... All right. That was a goof on my part. I'm kind of, I feel a little bad about how I kind of killed the momentum on that, but that's fine. That is kind of neat how they handled it. So the guess that we bring about the end of things, or like we bring out about the end of things for us, seems to have been a good intuition. We're of course not around to see whether or not all of space-time is lost as well. And I also know... So it says it's about 7 minutes. I may be a little uncomfortable leaving it for that, but let's do 5 with Chert. Please don't crash me. Abort! Oh my god! The humanity! Stop, for the love of God! Alright, there we go. Definitely 5 minutes now. Oh, but we found the smoke. Oh my god! Sabotage. One of the other things that I'm a little curious about here is that we obviously have the concerns about the seed from Dark Bramble on Timber Hearth. So I don't know if the journey to the Eye of the Universe is supposed to be like a one-way ticket. If it is, I feel like I should be warning my my Hearthian brothers and sisters to get rid of that thing and come pick up Feldspar. All right, please don't screw up. Got it. So we might have lost a little time. This might have been the first pass, but. Yeah. We probably had a little inefficiency as far as time, but this is eminently solvable. So now all the anglers make sense too, because if you screw up with the anglers, then you're done. Oh, I wanted to get that like a champ. Oh well. That cactus is almost certainly there to stop you from rushing too. A lot of the little choices suddenly make a lot more sense once you know that this is a major event. Okay, so the vessel's already on its way. Let's not fly into the sun. Also, I guess if it means that all of space and time are going, these explosions that we're seeing in the background could just legitimately be other systems that are going up, rather than history sort of repeating over and over again. All right. So, key here is don't panic, because that's going to alert hostile creatures. I could have used a little more oomph on this one, but I'm just going to accept. I'm just going to accept my path, and we'll make a break for it when it's viable. Such a really good choice for a music cue. So, it definitely has the sense of finality to it, but it's really interesting too, because of course you sort of know, you feel like you're under a whole lot of time pressure when you do that. You know you have to wrap up whatever task that you're doing, And so these moments here become just so much more intense and so much more alarming. And you're much more inclined to sort of make a mistake, like rushing near the anglers. So here I feel comfortable enough. Okay, so there might have been something that got mad at that, but... Okay, I gotta put a little more pressure. I think we're through. I just want to double... Yep, we're good. So I really don't have any sense in terms of what kind of time I have left. But at this point, I just want to be sensible. I want to be deliberate in my actions. And we'll see what the next step is. God, this is exciting. I don't know if you guys are feeling it like me, but I really want to see where this is going. Okay. Cool. So I'm a little curious what this does. Seemingly nothing right now, so... Ooh. Okay, let's make sure we get this right. And then we had right. This is actually not that hard to write in once you sort of know it, but the first time you look at it, it's like, how am I ever going to get these things done? Ooh. Oh. Oh, wow. I don't have a ship. Recording this now, I've never encountered anything like this. The signal from the vessel is receiving appears to be older than the universe itself. This is our first contact with anything of this nature. Everyone, prepare to warp immediately. Escal, wait. I need more time to send an outgoing message. Shouldn't we tell another clan where we're going? We can send the message upon our arrival. This extraordinary signal appeared suddenly. It may disappear just as quickly, and we can't lose a discovery this incredible. Focus on preparing for the warp instead. I understand. Anona, the ship is ready to warp to the signal's is the vessel ready to warp to the signal's approximate coordinates? The warp core is powered, but this will be a significant jump. Afterwards, we'll need time to recharge the core. That shouldn't create a problem, provided we arrive at or near the signal's source. Everyone, we're ready to warp. So this is so interesting because, of course, we're now face to face with the object of our quest, but we've become reacquainted with mortality. So any decision that I make... Oh God, what does that mean? I mean, I don't have any other options, so... I think we're on the Quantum Moon again. Yeah, there's the ship. God, this is so interesting. That's a really good question. It's not really figuring out what... I think the implied goal is to actually get to the eye of the universe. That's what the Nomai were looking for. It is absolutely amazing how this game gives you a sense of wonder. It's definitely been a very long time since I felt this way about a science fiction game. That's such a nice touch. Trees did. Oh god, none of this makes sense. This is amazing. Hmm. So I definitely can't just jump up there. Ooh, yeah. The gravity's so much higher up here. So if I'm going to take it from this side, I need to find... Okay, gravity means nothing on this side. Ah, well, in that case, it should be a little more straightforward. Oh, it's 2001. This is great. Outer Wilds Ventures was founded by Feldspar, Gosson, Slate, and Hornfels to explore a solar system at the end of the universe. The Nomai never got to see it for themselves, but thanks to their efforts and technology, a Hearthian was able to reach the eye of the universe. Of all life forms who will perish in the oncoming death of the universe, we will miss the anglerfish the least. At the end of its lifespan, our sun collapsed under its own gravity and then exploded in a violent supernova. The Nomai who came to our solar system were following a signal from the eye of the universe. They perished when the interloper arrived, bringing with it the deadly substance we call ghost matter that flooded the entire solar system almost instantly and without warning. So interesting that they don't mention, like, there's some of these where deliberately the signs are missing. This is a great touch. Hornfell's observations. This is incredible. At first I thought the points of light in this image were stars, but they're not. They're galaxies. And this image covers just a tiny patch of the whole sky, which means the universe contains at least 1,000 times more galaxies than we previously imagined. I think I need to sit down. This is odd. According to my redshift calculations, every single galaxy in this image is moving away from us. In fact, the further away a galaxy is, the faster it appears to be moving away. It's almost as if the entire universe is expanding. But if that's true, was everything closer together in the past? And how far can we extrapolate? Did the universe have a beginning? I've well and truly gotten lost now. Hello, Chocolimit. Do you hear music? Hmm. It's funny. I wish I could see so much more inside of it, but I don't really think it has anything to do with a. I don't. I don't think it's a matter of. Oh, hang on a second. I'm gonna bet every time I turn away, the thing gets a little more decayed. Yeah. Wow, they really don't want me to get that last one, huh? It's not quite time yet. Pretty sure we'll need the others for this next part. We'll need, everyone. No rush. Take your time. May not even exist here. Aren't you forgetting someone? Hmm. It's not gonna make it easy, that's for sure. But I have some ideas. Okay, so I don't seem to be able to interact with this, and every time I get a bit closer, it's they vanish. So all right. Pretty sure it just reset my position. Oh, maybe not. Is it really that easy? There he is. Stars were beautiful, weren't they? Even if our star is what ultimately killed us. I'll wait here and remember them while you gather everybody. Haha, nice. Oh. Don't go floating off on me now. We are very much in the end of 2001 A Space Odyssey territory here. Chocolimit has definitely gotten very abstract, so... Hey, Time Pal. So you're getting the band back together, huh? Go on, find the others. I'll be here. You don't need me yet, but you will. Of course, we leave the harmonica last. Oh, crap. Okay, we can't do that yet. We gotta talk with our friends. Hatchling, you found me. Nice to have company around a campfire, isn't it? Go on, go get the others. Wouldn't want them to miss out. Oh, maybe we do need to get the Nomai then. That's a shame. I actually really like listening to that piano version. Oh, but they're all pointing up, so... Oh, is it the Eye of the Universe that we're missing? it's really, really hammering it home. Oof. Well, at least it didn't kill me. That's not it. Help me, brothers. This is such a nice image of the Nomai helping you get to the... Ah, God, this is so good. Oops, could be the left one. There's my friend. A conscious observer has entered the eye. I wonder what happens now. Is it time to find out? Not yet. Then I will wait until you are ready to know the answer. What do you say, time buddy? Ready to start the music? No rush. I'm not going anywhere. What do you say then? Should I get out the old harmonica? Not yet. You got it, hatchling. When you're ready, just say the word. Can't wait to play with the whole group again. Can I start? Not yet. Okay. I'll get to play soon though, right? Shall I begin? Not yet. Take your time. I don't think there's anything left to go supernova. Should I begin? Not yet. Okay, I'll wait till you're ready. I wonder who I should tell. Solanum is definitely someone I've grown quite attached to, but I feel Esker sometimes feels a little neglected, so yes. Okay, I won't let you down. Oh, we're telling everyone. Nice. You got it. I'll do my best. What do you say then? Should I get out the old harmonica? Yes. Aha! Here goes nothing. What do you say, time buddy? Ready to start the music? Yes. Yeah, this should be cool. Shall I begin? Yes. Well then, here I go. Almost certainly yes, Choco Limit. A conscious observer has entered the eye. I wonder what happens now. Is it time to find out? Yes. This song is new to me, but I'm honored to be part of it. Wow, how long has it been since I got to make music with everyone around a campfire? Really happy we're all here. Even if it's over now, I had a good time learning. But I think the rules are about to change. I learned a lot by the end of everything. The past is the past, but that's, that's okay. It's never really gone completely. The future is always built on the past, even if we won't get to see it. Still, it's, time for something new now. Cut it a little close, don't you think? Well, it worked out alright in the end, I suppose. I hope there are beasties in the next one. Tell you what, this has been really fun, and I got to help make something pretty cool, so I've got no complaints. I mean, not me exactly, but close enough. It's the kind of thing that makes you glad you stopped and smelled the pine trees along the way, you know? I believe we've reached the end of our journey. All that remains is to collapse the innumerable possibilities before us. Are you ready to learn what comes next? Yes. I admire your curiosity, friend. Let's find out together. So what did you guys think? If anybody has any opinions. I certainly do. That was a truly wonderful game. There were a couple of details that I think I was a little unclear on. I'll... Yes, I agree. I'll talk about the things that I liked, because that's going to be the substance of sort of what I what I have to say. I'm trying to think. I have the distinct impression. I mean, well, it's inescapable by the end, but I'm trying to remember when exactly the game told me that the universe was dying. And then the other one that was a bit confusing for me was I did not quite understand how trying to get to the eye of the universe without the core destroyed space-time. That was a little confusing. But that's not like a blight. I mean, use your judgment, Woban. I suppose, obviously you've seen the game, but if there's, I do intend on actually showing this to a friend who doesn't normally watch the cast, so, and I suspect there might be some people who have now been, I mean, obviously the ending would be nice to experience blind, but there might be some people who are compelled to play the game now. So, be careful, but it's a little bit less strict in terms of the kinds of conversations that we can have about the game and what it's about. I think one of the there's a few things that I really like about it. I mean, the easiest thing that I could say would be science fiction is really broad. It's diverse. It will cover everything from yeah, we already saw that. But yeah, I think, science fiction can cover everything from Frankenstein and Jurassic Park to, The Fly. It can cover, I mean, I suppose it'd be interesting to see whether or not Inception would really count as a science fiction movie or that. Aliens, Terminator, there's lots, and it's obviously a huge genre in terms of, of gaming. Call of Duty's gone into it. So here's your question, since you brought up Jurassic Park. I think one of the things that's really nice about this game, though, and I mean it's true for it's true for movies as well as games. I love Terminator. I think Terminator is a very good movie and a very well-written story. that is also incredibly entertaining to watch. I don't necessarily think that there's a division between, doing some kind of a page turner and making a really good point. Song Craig says, what trauma do you think Michael Crichton suffered as a child that his two best-known works, Jurassic Park and Westworld, are about theme park attractions going rogue and murdering the guests? God, that's a really good question. I never really thought of it that way. Because, I think of Michael Crichton in some other senses. But yeah, I think... sorry, I'm taking the time to build the point, because I'm trying not to sound too elitist, or I'm not trying to sound too sort of full of myself in terms of the stuff that I like. I think we kind of take it for granted how good a lot of science fiction is. And I think a lot of the stuff that we like to sort of consider lowbrow science fiction is actually quite a bit smarter and more interesting than we sometimes give credit for. So perfect example is everyone I try to convince to watch The Terminator who hasn't seen it is deeply skeptical. And yet clearly it is a very well-made film with, I would say, a fairly important theme, which also happens to be a really good... I mean, Terminator 2 is pretty much the template for action movies that follow, so I'm just going to have a quick drink. But with that in mind, the one thing I will say is that the sort of stuff that really punches above its weight, the sort of science fiction that takes on really big topics, is, it's rare, it's hard to find, and there's every reason not to make it. Because if you try and take on a really big subject like the Outer Wilds does, or something like 2001: A Space Odyssey or Solaris, and you miss, you look like a pretentious ass, and people just talk about how boring your game or your movie or whatever was. And it's tough too, because, in terms of, there has to be at least some degree of cinematic influence on this. There's scenes on the sun base that definitely harken back to specific shots in Sunshine. Most of the Eye of the Universe moments are pretty much, maybe not shot for shot, but very clearly inspired by 2001: A Space Odyssey. And when yes, Woban, it's always fun to point out when people misspeak, especially when they've already corrected themselves. Thanks. I think that was a really helpful contribution to the conversation. Would you like to add more? No, I'll pause the subject. It seemed like you wanted to get that out. Anyways, so the other thing that's really tricky about this stuff is that, I love the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is very hard for me to sort of explain what it's about. I have some rough ideas in terms of what's going on. I could explain the plot to you. I think probably the wrong way to watch that movie is to sit down and try and come up with the codes for it and whatnot. In this case, it's really about the exploration and the enjoyment of just sort of letting the experience wash over you. One of the things that I did kind of want to get to on this, and I realize I'm taking a long time to get to it, just because I'm trying to kind of piece together my thoughts in the bumper, the bumper car of Twitch chat. There's been a little bit of a movement, I guess, for lack of a better term, in terms of science fiction, which is talking about how they're really tired of lots of dystopias. That once upon a time, science fiction was considering big subjects, and it was about wonder and exploration, and that we're full of dystopias, and there's just a general pessimism and skepticism of science and whatnot. I think this is a pretty valid criticism, to a certain extent. After Blade Runner, art directors have been basically reheating Blade Runner's leftovers since that first came out. And to a certain extent, science fiction has always sort of been a critique. So it's very hard to look at something like The War of the Worlds and not consider the fact that H.G. Wells was a British author writing, in the time of the British Empire. And, some of the examples that I gave of very good science fiction that that stirs the pot and keeps you engaged. Terminator is not a particularly optimistic movie. Even the sequel, which is definitely a lot more Hollywood, is pretty bleak, and it ends on a very, a pretty uncertain note. But I think one of the big things is that, it's not wrong for science fiction to take on, critical messages, especially too, because when you're in a time when you need to get a message out, being able to put things as aliens or as, something other than yourself, you're able to sort of bring across a message that other people may not necessarily be willing to hear yet. And yet, I think so I guess number one, what I'm trying to say is, when you're sitting down about a subject and thinking about a subject that you want to write or you want to talk about, commercially, depressing settings, depressing stories are an easy sell. They lend themselves to action. I mean, how many video games have you played that sort of take place in blasted wastelands where everything's really gray? Hey, no problem, Uncle Cranky. Yeah, I'll do my best to kick around, but obviously we're sort of debriefing on the Outer Wilds, so if the conversation sort of dies down, we'll get. There is an audience participation part to this a little bit later. If you guys do have thoughts about Outer Wilds, though, definitely feel free to share them. I'm trying to buy myself some time while chat is, maybe possibly collecting its thoughts. So like I said, there's there's a lot of, there's a commercial imperative to tell a darker story. It also sort of lends itself, if you tell a dark story, an adult story, that gives it gravitas, right? If you talk about nuclear war, obviously this is a big subject and, it requires a serious treatment, unless, of course, you are Stanley Kubrick and you realize that the best way to communicate that particular message is through comedy, because really the only way you can understand the insanity of mutual assured destruction is through, is through humor. But with that in mind, while there is every... there's almost, it seems like every single incentive goes against something like Outer Wilds being made. If you look, and if you try, there is stuff like this being made. There are stories like this being told. 2001: A Space Odyssey's never gone away. There's a lot, all the old science fiction is still there. And it sometimes takes a game like Outer Wilds to remind me about why I got really interested in science fiction, when I was younger. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy had a really deep effect on me, partly through being able to express myself a little bit better. I definitely appreciated the humor, although I certainly had a very absurdist sense of humor. Hello, Armor. How you doing? Yes, I do. We just finished Outer Wilds, so I'm talking a bit about science fiction, but feel free to stick around and have a chat about it. But part of the things that I liked about it, obviously it starts off very grim, the destruction of Earth. But I think one of the things is because Douglas Adams was very concerned about conservation, very concerned about nature, there is sort of a degree of, maybe not wonder, but there was definitely a very interesting, it was a very interesting universe. And I wanted to know more about it. And I wanted to sort of get the new perspective that came from kicking around with Arthur Dent and his pals. I know one person who explicitly tried to try and make more optimistic science fiction was Neil Stephenson with I think it's pronounced Sevensness. I haven't actually read it yet. I'm looking forward to trying it. And then, of course, you have Steve Jobs, who's talked a bit about how a lot of the devices that Apple produced are largely inspired by things that he saw inside of Star Trek and the Jetsons. And it's kind of important to remember stuff like that. There is something about stimulating the imagination, and particularly stimulating either an optimistic or a hopeful imagination. There is something to be said about presenting worlds that are worth fighting for, and worlds that are worth exploring. And I think one of the things that interests me the most about Outer Wilds is that they present you such a beautiful solar system that is ultimately destroyed, and you have no it's so interesting too, because in this game you seem to be trying to save it for so long, and ultimately you sort of accept the end of things, and you bring about the birth of something new, something beautiful, and something that may not necessarily be you. And it's so interesting because, of course, in the game you've grown quite accustomed to death, but it's possibly due to the fact that I'm kind of sounding a bit like Destiny 2 or Batman. It's just you've forgotten how to fear it rather than necessarily accepting or embracing death. So the I don't know, there's something to be said for the way that the game very subtly sort of starts pushing you towards a new way of thinking, particularly about your own mortality. Actually, I like the fact that I talked about how I took some time to read a book that I really liked before starting the stream, because obviously, it wasn't Feldspar, I think it was Gabro maybe, said kind of makes you happy that you stopped by and smelled the pine for a bit. One more thing? Yeah, sorry, the Steve Jobs quote. But yeah, this is definitely a really special game for a lot of reasons. If I had to try and explain the plot, I suspect probably the one thing that I'd really didn't get right, and I sort of appreciate now, is that the interloper really was an extinction event for the Nomai. I never really had a very satisfactory explanation as to why I was seeing Nomai activity. And yet there were skeletons, like very clearly all evidence of the Nomai were that they had been dead for an extremely long time. But I think what's my guess in terms of explaining that is that basically we have reached the natural end of the reached the natural end of our solar system, and so it just so happens in sort of the final moments of that solar system, we wind up activating the Ash Twin project, which is sort of laying dormant the whole time, which is a really neat idea. I hope that's what it is, because that's a really clever little twist. Yeah, overall, I mean, I think the one thing that I always sort of struggle with, because I always want to pull it out from I always kind of want to pull it out from one of these types of stories is, what's the message? That tends to be the sort of thing in terms of sci-fi. It definitely helps when you're having conversations about these kinds of stories in terms of being able to say, this was the point, and didn't you appreciate the tremendous, use of imagery at this moment here to try and make yourself smart at a party. But I don't know. I think one of the things that makes this so wonderful as a game is the fact that it doesn't sit down and lecture you. There's lots to read, for sure. There's lots to sort of sit down and think out and puzzle through. And yet, of course, for my great love of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is really something that should be watched and experienced and felt. I think even Kubrick himself said that, if he wanted to write an essay, it would have been significantly easier than producing 2001: A Space Odyssey. Hey, thanks, Armor. I'll actually be a guest on Apocalypses. It could have been activated by the supernova after it happened the first time. That's interesting, but then I suppose it invites the question how I got paired with the statue then. Wouldn't it be the... Although I guess they did just say that they had recently unearthed the statue, so perhaps that's a convenient coincidence? Because yeah, I mean, I suppose if it's the question of the pairing of the statue, you need to understand why it had enough energy to do so. Although I suppose the statues are different from the complete project happening. Yeah, that's a good point. Maniacal Dr. Watts. But the I think one of the things that really gives here's a few things that I think give Outer Wilds its impact. We're definitely in a very bleak time, or at least even if the time itself is not necessarily bleak, I think it is very fair to say that. By the way, I love that all of the stars are gone right now. There's a lot of nice, really little touches in this title sequence, as well as a few other things about the game that really just show you the level of care that they put into this thing. But I think one of the things, I think the timing was quite good. I think it's, like I said, there's every incentive to tell people that the world is horrible, and, to do cyberpunk and have it basically be, the world as it is today, except that maybe there's a slightly better advancement of AI or something like that. Oh, Armor 87, I think it'll be on Apocalypse. If you follow her on Twitch, it's HOPPO. Hop. It like hop is in rabbit and apocalypse. ACLYPSE. Sorry, I probably messed that up, but I'll type it out at the end. So it I think now in particular it's very fertile ground for us to be to be hearing stories like this. But on top of that, I think one really important thing about the Outer Wilds is that where 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's a very well-wrought film, but in the end, you need to sit down and you have to watch it, and everybody watches it at the same pace. And obviously they'll process it at different, at different speeds, different levels, and obviously they'll walk away with different impressions of it. Outer Wilds has the advantage of interactivity. I think this is a game that's done a very good job of clearly taking some of the best science fiction, and particularly the kind of science fiction that gets you in a particularly reflective mood, thinking about our place in the larger universe, thinking about questions of creation, the end of things, and whatnot. Questions that are as much sort of internal ones that we wrestle with as individuals, as much as sort of big cosmic questions, right? I mean, one of the earliest questions of philosophy is, where did it all come from? What's it made of? And it's not necessarily one that we've always come up with particularly satisfactory answers for. To a certain extent, the Big Bang is a description of the state in which the models break down, rather than necessarily being sort of an explanation of things. But again, because it's a game, and also particularly because you take the time to sort of unwrap it, to unpack it, you have an investment in it. And I think particularly because the end of the game really involves letting it go so something even more beautiful can take its place. There's just something really wonderful about the way that they are able to sort of just nudge you along. That, the grand... So I'd sort of say, like, the overall plot, you could sort of say, is that this is definitely the gaming answer to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Takes on big subjects. It presents them in a grand way. It sort of either respects you enough, or it wants to retain a sense of awe and mystery that's consistent with these kinds of subjects, and kind of consistent with why I think we are interested in exploration and stories like this. But I think probably the thing that really pushes this and makes this such a special game, and one that I would really encourage a lot of people to play, is the fact that it's a game where on the micro level, the individual level, the individual choices that you make all sort of start pushing you towards this conclusion. And again, the idea that in games, you are so used to not really worrying that much about death and the end of things. And yet, of course, the final decision in the game is to end things. The whole feeling of exploration and adventure, you keep running through all of the different environments. It's beautiful, it's mysterious, you have puzzles to solve. The puzzles create a sense of investment in that world, which of course can sometimes make it a bit painful to let it go. But again, you are really living the fantasy of of being an explorer, of being an adventurer. And I really tremendously appreciate how good they create a world that is worth exploring and sort of worth... in the end, I was kind of under the impression that I was trying to save it, but to finally kind of get a sense of acceptance in terms of letting it go and letting things carry on. That was a very nice touch at the end. And then, of course, just the overall atmosphere, the music, the optimism, the different perspective that you got from reading all the entries in the Nomai and whatnot. It's really well done, and I hope that what a lot of people take from this is just a chance to, just a chance to maybe think a little bit bigger in terms of the types of stories that they can tell, or the stories that they want to hear. This is not the only game that does this, by the way. In terms of science fiction, I would say this is pretty unique. But I mean, The Sims, this is a game which is about life. There's no shooting in it. There's no fighting. but there's plenty of gameplay, and there's plenty of interesting ideas sitting in there if you're willing to look for them. And there's actually been a couple of other games that have done a very good job of just getting me in a reflective mood about, the world and my place in it. The Eyes of Sin has a great love of nature and a great love of animals. When I played Subnautica, I sort of was beginning to appreciate some of the environmental themes inside of that game. That one obviously is a little more combat survival driven, so it's not necessarily going to be maybe as meditative as the Outer Wilds. Although it certainly doesn't mean, Outer Wilds, you do have death, you do have, in fact, very violent deaths in some cases. There's no shortage of action, but definitely in the case of Subnautica, you will have there are like lasers that shoot and whatnot. It's it's sort of neat. It's just another one of these reflections. I think it was after Ebert wrote this sort of like, video games are inevitably going to be inferior to film or something like that. There seemed to be a lot of effort in terms of the idea of like, well, let's make a video game that can make you cry. And yet when I think about the ones that have really kind of hit me in the core and have made me think the same sort of way I do when I watch a good science fiction film or read a good science fiction book. Soma, tremendous game. I think one that was largely underappreciated by its audience when it first came out. Outer Wilds is now in that. Subnautica, and one of the reasons, so these are games that I think are very effective in communicating their ideas because they don't sit down and tell you in a cutscene what you need to know. What they do instead is they take the certain actions that you do in the game and you start changing your behavior as you adopt some of the ideas of the game. So for instance, in Subnautica, I started off like fish were a source of food for me. So fish, I was on this beautiful ocean planet, and the wildlife were a resource to be consumed. The planet was going to be something that I harvested for resources because that's what you do in games like that. And I can't tell you the exact moment when, but I decided that I wanted to build. I decided I really wanted to build gardens because there would just seem to be something really inelegant about like floating out and just scooping up a bunch of fish and eating them so that I could kind of keep going on in the game. That sort of seemed wrong. And that is in fact laid into the game at the very start. There's a warning that the game sort of gives you. It's like you may feel eating the carcass of another being is revolting, but in fact this is how your species survived thousands of years ago. That's what I like about that, is that I noticed these subtle shifts in behavior on my part, but there was never the moment. It never does what some of these games do, which is to sit you down, push the X button to shoot someone, and then it's like, well, don't you feel bad for shooting them? And I'm like, well, no, because he wouldn't let me go to the rest of the game until I did that. In terms of Outer Wilds, in terms of Subnautica, I was largely left to my own devices to either, succeed or fail, or to take the lesson or not. And I really like the fact that there are more and more games now that are thinking a little bit. What they're doing is they're giving me an opportunity to think about things, to think about my actions, and to sort of reflect on maybe what that means. It gives me a new perspective in terms of how to look at the world outside. And most importantly, I think this is the easiest reason I could give for someone to try out the Outer Wilds is that Outer Wilds is, sorry, I keep calling it the Outer Wilds. It's Outer Wilds. think one of the biggest reasons why I would tell someone to play Outer Wilds is that it really is kind of one of the very few games, and I would argue, one of the very few pieces of media, science fiction stories, that has really captured a sense of wonder. And this would be across the board, really. I remember my first encounter with a living nomai, and it took me that moment to realize how unimpressive it has been to meet other life in all other science fiction games. The big closing at the end, particularly with the beautiful music, and even just little things, right? Like seeing everything crumble in front of you, and sort of the foreshadowing of the big ending when the plant just keeps growing smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you start the fire. It's Dark Souls all over again. Uncle Cranky will love it. There's every reason to. I think there's just for the sense of wonder alone, it's worth going through. Oddly enough, I think as long as you don't find out where the story is going, I would actually probably say if someone is feeling lost in the game, it actually wouldn't be bad for them to check out a walkthrough. I certainly do not want to be told how to play the game, but I think if it meant the difference between someone experiencing the story or not, I actually don't think solving the puzzles is as essential to getting the experience. I mean, again, I did just say that, solving the puzzles and exploring creates a sense of investment in this handcrafted world that ultimately you see destroyed. So there is something lost in the translation. And yet I feel that the feeling that the game produces probably survives some of the puzzles. Anyways, guys, I've kind of said what I had to. I don't know if it was edifying to anyone. Obviously, we've slowly lost viewers, but I think that's it. I really did want to take a chance to sort of, try and get whatever first thoughts I had. I realized they may not have been the most articulate. But I tried to want to at least put this in the context of other stuff that I've played. So the one thing that I would like, if you guys don't have anything to say about Outer Wilds, that's fine, because obviously it's sort of my job to deliver. But my question to you would be, this is partly for recommendations, this is partly for my interest. What game would you guys follow up Outer Wilds with? So let's say, even better still, you had a friend who said, video games are stupid, I don't understand why you waste so much time on them. And you say, Outer Wilds, get to the end, take a minute to think about it, let's talk after. And they say, you've convinced me, this is the greatest form of entertainment that anyone has produced. I'm hooked. What do I play next? I'm really curious what people's recommendations or thoughts would be. It could be a game we've talked about before. It could be, and again, I'm kind of interested. I'm definitely interested in what to play next. I know what I want to play next in terms of the stream, but I am kind of curious where things go as far as I don't know, thematically consistent or similar feelings or just general thoughts in terms of companion games, let's say. But also because, I think I've sort of said anything that I need to about the game. Well, I didn't need to say any of that, I think is Turn of the Oberdin, yeah. You don't think so much about games? I do my best that I can. I had a friend who told me that To the Moon had a good story. Oh, okay, that's the, I think that was made in Game Maker, right? Yeah, it's interesting to see, yeah, well, that's just it. This is why I'm interested in the answer to that question, right? Because in some cases you'll get answers like Glager's, which is, Return of the Oberdin, which is sort of the, this is going to sound pejorative, and I really don't mean it this way, but sort of like the art house kind of style of video game, right? You know, you the sort of person who, you know, reads Cahiers du Cinema and you know, maybe went to like New York University to, you know, to study film studies and all that. And like, don't get me wrong, like I have watched my Godard. Like I am totally one of these wankers who in another life would like have sunglasses and a beret on right now. Like that is not a slight to that sort of stuff at all. And then I can sort of see someone saying is like, oh, how could you suggest Return of the Obra Dinn? That's that's not a science fiction game. That's something different. Can you ask my opinion on a game? Sure, Armor. I'm always happy to hear opinions. You know, To the Moon. So there's the argument of saying that there's a good story here in Outer Wilds, and so the next appropriate companion to Outer Wilds is to think about what your favorite story games are. This is the reason why I like questions like that, because in the end, if you're like, so it's like if you're in a book club, right? And somebody sits down and like maybe you read the Iliad and you've got someone who like, you know, they did classical studies and they've translated Homer from the original Greek, and you know, they've read Bernard Knox and they've read, you know, all of these great scholars on it, and they can explain everything about what's on the shield of Achilles. You know, then they'd turn over to you and it's like, well, System Chalk, what did you think of the Iliad? And I'm like, I don't understand why Achilles had to sulk in his tent for so many books. Why didn't they get to the fighting? You know, that's hard, right? Like if you have people who are really invested in something and they seem to feel very passionately about something, it's sometimes hard to speak out specifically about the game. But if instead you say to someone, it's like, what do you think would be a good follow-up to this game? You actually start getting an idea in terms of what really spoke to someone in terms of that. So if somebody says XCOM, you know, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about that. But not the full game yet for the answer on In Other Waters. If you've played it, what did you think of the game Myst? It's a heavy story game. I've not actually played Myst. That's like a really old game from the 1990s, right? I think that Myst was the inspiration for The Witness, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of like how Return of the Obra Dinn sort of, at least its visual style, is definitely drawn from the old HyperCard games. So the challenge with Obra Dinn is that I know of HyperCard, but I never really played the sort of stuff that was Pope's sort of main inspiration for it. And likewise, I have The Witness, and I'm really interested in it, and I know about Myst. I know like Myst was a massively successful game, and clearly very influential to a lot of game designers, and yet I quite shamefully have not played that rather important piece of gaming history. But hey, at least at least I played One Must Fall 2097 on Wednesday, right? I do need to start wrapping up the cast. I think we've had a good chat on it, but I did want to get people a chance to say what they wanted to say about okay, Armor 87. Did you know? No problem. Did you know that one of the playtesters on One Must Fall 2097 is a game designer today? Sorry guys, I didn't want to get off of Outer Wilds on this, but this was I think my favorite reveal. So one of the designers at Respawn Entertainment, guy who's got design credit on Titanfall, the single player of Titanfall 2, and Apex Legends, previously working on the Call of Duty games, was a playtester on One Must Fall 2097. I talked quite a bit about that game on Wednesday's cast, so you should still be able to see it on the VODs on Twitch, and I'll be uploading it on YouTube before too long. But what I was going to say, I do need to start considering wrapping it up and finding somebody to host. I actually appreciate those of you who've hung around for a bit, because I know it's not necessarily that fun to listen to a guy pontificate on a game, especially if you disagree with what they're saying, or think that, they're... I mean, I got to be honest with this. So I try to be as honest as I can in terms of a game. I try not to say something that I don't think about it. I try not to sound more clever than I particularly am on a given subject. When it comes to something like Econ, I've done my time, and so, we'll try and, maybe speak at a higher level. With film, I have some working knowledge of it, so at least when it comes to the visual side, the cinematography side, I feel somewhat comfortable in going into those territories, and sometimes it means I'm going to kind of go off the deep end a bit. But I definitely try not to say stuff that I don't believe. But I definitely know that can be a very off-putting style, and I have gotten feedback in the past where it's like, you don't need to try and you don't need to show everybody how clever you are, and I that's not what I really try and do, and I do my best to not make that what the experience is, but it's sometimes something that I want to, I don't necessarily want to say I want to take that criticism to heart, because it's a little bit like when Ryan Clark gets feedback from people saying that, you're not that smart, you don't need to explain, you're just sitting here crapping on all of these games, saying what they're doing wrong. Like, what have you done that's so impressive? And the answer is, well, founding Brace Yourself Games and making Crypt of the Necrodancer and Industry of Titan and Cadence of Hyrule, and, Ryan Clark has definitely earned his right to talk about what works in games. But the important thing is that the commenters like that are, their takeaway from something like Clark Tank, which is intended to help developers meet success in terms of games. What they're taking away from that is not that this is something designed to help people understand what works and what doesn't. And sometimes that means showing negative examples, and sometimes that means showing positive ones. They're taking it away. Their takeaway for that is that this is some, bald guy, offering opinions on everybody else's games rather than sitting down working on his own. I don't think that's the right way to look at it, and yet clearly something's being sort of lost in the translation. And so I sometimes have to appreciate that, I want to speak as honestly as I can about the game. I think that helps me, for myself, understand why a game affected me in a certain way, and what's worthwhile out of it. But I also need to appreciate that not everyone is going to take away from that. Sometimes it's just going to be, it's like, did you really have to talk for half an hour after the game? I don't care about your feelings. Just get on with the gameplay. But I hope at least some of you found it useful. Oh, God bless you, Armor87. Thank you. Guys, Armor87 just gave me a belated birthday gift in the form of Myst, so I can obviously not make any promises in terms of when I will play this, but I appreciate that tremendously, Armor. I'll accept that to my Steam library right now. I did want to take I'm going to get the mercenary side out here. If this inspired you to pick up the game, and I do recommend in the strongest possible terms that you check this game out. It is worth the experience. I am probably going to do something that I've never done before, and I'm actually going to record this in private for some friends of mine in Vancouver who I've not seen in years and don't really play video games that much. But I really want to record this game for them and say, it's like, I want to share this with you, and you may not quite get where this is going right away, but watch to the end, and I think it'll be worth it. And I cannot think of a lot of games that have sort of inspired me to do that. This is a really special game. I think I'm going to get something out of another playthrough of it. And if you've not tried it, I do encourage you to pick it up. I'm not going to lie to you, it is obviously available on Steam now, and I think most people, when given the choice between the two storefronts, are probably going to go for Steam, which is what they already have their things on. There's obviously going to be a whole generation of gamers that have, their first game was Fortnite, and that's not necessarily going to be true for them, that they'll be just as happy to buy stuff on the client that that their favorite game is on. But if you are okay buying it on the Epic Store and you would like to credit me with the sale, you can use that link that's inside of chat, or you can put in the creator tag System Chalk, and I do get a portion of the sales. Likewise, if you buy Death Stranding or Ooblets right now, those actually have a very generous creator share. Ooblets is an Epic exclusive right now. They're in early access. And Death Stranding is, of course, available on Steam right away. So, as always, these are never calls to, buy something on a storefront which you wouldn't have normally. Although I will point out that, at least for the Outer Wilds, the developer is ultimately going to be receiving more of the revenue for the purchase than if they do it on Steam, because, of course, the revenue share on Epic is so much more generous. So that's awesome, Armor87. I hope you really enjoy it. I know it was on sale during the Steam sale, so you should be able to get it at a good price before too long. So, guys, I appreciate you hanging out. I am done for tonight. But if there's, and again, I kind of gave my last helicopter out of Saigon warning. So if you guys have anything you want to say about Outer Wilds or the playthrough or just a general sentiment, now is the time to get that out. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to find someone to host tonight. Oh, yes, I did say that I was going to, so the podcast, believe that is Apocalypse's. That's Apocalypse's channel right there. So there is a so the good news for those of you who do want to check out that podcast, the episodes are recorded and put on a podcasting site. So if you want to watch that. If you want to hear that, it will be recorded, and I will give you the link when I have. So just feel free to ask me after Tuesday. Ask me for the link, and I will provide it when they give it to me. But if you want to see it live, it'll probably be broadcast on Apocalypse's channel. Oddly enough, I think science fiction might be coming up in the chat, so that's going to be kind of fun. Awesome. Okay, great. I'm sorry I don't have a more definitive answer for you, Armor87, but I'm I'm in the dark myself. I'm looking forward to it though. Apocalypse is a really nice streamer. Now, looks like I'm a little short on options, but Rainbow Lightbright is streaming right now, and I actually had a lot of fun watching her play Coffee Talk, which is what she's playing right now. I actually found Rainbow Lightbright through Apocalypse as well, so it all winds up sort of connecting together. I believe the streamer used to be a Mixer partner, now on Twitch. She's definitely quite talented at sort of engaging an audience and keeping the action going. And this Coffee Talk game has definitely been really enjoyable to watch. So I'd love it if you guys come along for the raid. You don't need to use the raid message if you don't want. I don't know them all that well. But we have the message as well. And one final revelation for those of you who are subscribed to the channel. There's some extra emotes. So definitely feel free to, if you have the account, you've got a few extra ones there. I'll probably make a couple of small changes to the two new ones by moving them in. I noticed that the faces are quite a bit smaller than the others, and so the expressions are not as clear. But I think, again, Amanda / the Eyes of Sin did a wonderful job with those. And I wanted to at least let you know. That was my big surprise for the cast. But we got a little too absorbed in the in Outer Wilds, which was, that was... probably a good reason. I'm done for tonight. I will record a new episode of Morrowind over the weekend, more Stellaris on Monday. Wednesday, we're back to Cultist Simulator. And Friday, I have a few ideas about what we're going to play. But we'll see. No problem, Armor. There's always the VODs. But we'll see you guys later. Please enjoy Rainbow Lightbright, and see you next time.